Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. As you can see behind me, we are in the new house. We are in the new office. We got the new setup. Still have to fill up my shelf and get it back to what it was, but I like how things look. So I'm excited about the new office and what it's going to end up looking like. But Lakers fell tonight 112-104 to the LA Clippers on rivalry week. It's interesting that they put Denver, the Clippers, and Dallas as LA's three primary rivals this week. But LA falls 112-104. They drop to 26-17. They fall from number 5 in the West to number 6. Minnesota and Houston also lost tonight of note. So the West standings were in flux tonight, but LA goes from number 5 to number 6. Phoenix goes up to number 5. Minnesota stays at number 7. LA is now 1-1 on their 8-game Grammy road trip. They will head tomorrow morning to Dallas to continue the trip. This was the return to LA for less than 48 hours and then heading out now for 6 consecutive games outside of Los Angeles. But tonight's game, LA fell down 26 points and they had an insane comeback over the final 19 minutes of this game. So we have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down, but shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate you all. People are talking about my mustache. I appreciate it. But let's get into it. So Buha's big picture. I'm actually, this was a tough loss for LA because there was a couple of moments, like they were down 26 early in the third quarter. And so they're down big at the half. I believe they were down 17 at halftime. And you're wondering if, similar to the Denver game, they would, like, Denver actually started the third quarter pretty well, but then LA quickly took over around like the 8.5 minute mark of the third. And then completely flipped the game from that point on. You wondered if LA was going to do that, but the first few minutes of the third quarter put that notion to rest, at least at the time, in terms of they just stretched the lead even further and eventually got it to as many as 26. Then LA goes on this furious run. I think it ended up peaking at about 38-14 run to get within 2. And then the Clippers once again establish some distance, and then the Lakers go on another run and get it to, I believe, a few points late in the game. Might have been like 2 or 3 again. So LA had these like a sustained run that got it to 2 over the course of the third into the fourth, and then another run late where it looked like they had a real opportunity to potentially steal this game and have a second improbable comeback to start the road trip. But I'm going to take a more positive note coming off of this game, because even with how LA was playing in the first half, I wasn't, for some reason, I wasn't that disappointed. Like, there was an element of, once again, an elite shot making half from an opponent. The Clippers were basically hitting everything from deep. And I thought just the way, like the flow of the game, I thought LA was playing a little bit better than the score indicated, though certainly you don't want to be down 17 at halftime. The third quarter, I started to feel a little bit differently, but then again, they had an incredible final like 18, 19 minutes of this game. And in many ways, it did mirror the Denver game. But my Buha's big picture off of tonight's game is the defense is showing signs of life again. And we've seen a few of these stretches from the Lakers this season where they will have 2, 3, 4 good defensive performances in a row. I think this one might be the most impressive given the caliber of opponent. Going from Toronto to Denver to the Clippers. The Clippers enter tonight. People will look at the record, and if you take that at face value, you will say it's a bad loss. And of course, it's a bad loss for the Lakers anytime they lose to the Clippers, because they do not want to lose to the Clippers. There still is the crosstown tension, we'll say. I don't want to call it a rivalry because it's not a rivalry. But the Clippers have been the best team in the NBA since mid-December. They entered tonight 13-3 over their past 16 games, which is the best record in the league over that span. So yes, they had a disastrous start to the season at 6-21. Clippers have been playing great basketball. So LA caught them. They had won 8 of 9 home games going into tonight's game. So LA caught a team in a great groove that was playing its best basketball of the season by far. They just lost Kawhi. He came back, of course, for this game. But like this was a team that has been playing really well, has had some really nice wins lately. And so this, to me, I actually think had the Lakers won this one, this would have been more impressive to me than the Denver win, just because the Clippers are closer to full strength. They're playing better than Denver currently is. And I just think it would, and also they were down more in this one. But this recent defense from the Lakers over their past 3 games, including this one, they have a 108 defensive rating, which would rank 7th in the NBA over the past 3 games. But that would be in that top 2, top 3 conversation in the totality of the season. So LA has been playing defense at a really high level these last 3 games. And as JJ has talked about, they're getting weird, they're getting funky. This one again was more similar to the Denver game where LA started the game off in zone. It did not go well. There's a difference. I think like the Toronto game was a bit of an exception, and even the Portland game to a degree was a bit of an exception in terms of when you're playing a team that doesn't have a certain level of offensive talent and a certain level of passing, don't necessarily have a primary ball handler who could break down the defense consistently. That's where I think you can play zone and stymie an average to below average offense. When you're playing a team like Denver, who has been 12th in offense or entering that game was 12th in offense without Jokic, and then you're playing a team tonight in the Clippers with Harden and Kawhi, it's just a different level of talent offensively compared to what Portland had available or what Toronto has. Because for as great as Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram are, they are not high-level playmakers. They are not a Jamal Murray or a James Harden. It's just a different player archetype. So I thought LA was able to have zone success against those teams because those teams don't have the same level of passing and high level playmaking. They also don't have the same level of shooting that the Nuggets and the Clippers have. So that did not work in the last couple of games. But what did work tonight was LA trapping and blitzing and doubling and forcing the ball out of James Harden's hands, forcing the ball out of Kawhi Leonard's hands, and those guys turning the ball over, the Clippers role players being put in positions where they had to try to create off the dribble and make plays and make reads, and they turned the ball over. So the Lakers, I'm going to spoil the stat of the night. I will touch on it once we get to that part of the show, but stat of the night tonight was 22 stocks for LA, a season high. They had 14 steals and 8 blocks tonight, and a couple of big shout outs. A lot of guys to give shout outs to, but first and foremost has to start with Jake LaRavia, who I was surprised didn't play that much. Like, he did get cooked by Kawhi, and it was a departure from the 2 previous matchups where he guarded Kawhi pretty well. I thought he started the game off well on him because Kawhi got going, but that was not against Jake. If you see the plays he was scoring on, there was a play where Marcus was on him. He hit a pull-up 3. He got LeBron on him in transition. Ayton was really low on a drop. Ayton was supposed to be up. He just gives up a wide open 3 to Kawhi. So he was not cooking Jake early, but then as the game progressed, there was a stretch there where he scored on Jake multiple times. And that was part of, I believe, in the third quarter as the Clippers extended the run. But Jake, 3 steals, 4 blocks. Vando off the bench. Vando, this was, I think, arguably it's going to be wild because he only had 1 rebound, but I think this was arguably his best defensive performance of the season, and maybe his best performance of the season, maybe his best performance of the past 2 seasons. Like, I'm getting a little wild here with my take on that, but I thought Vando was remarkable tonight defensively, and he in particular, that was a combination of he and Jake and Marcus, like those 3, though other guys had their moments. Vando, 4 steals, 1 block. Like he was a nightmare for, and especially having him cheat over as the other helper sort of in terms of if they're looking for the short roll or looking to make the reversal. Vando was incredible in that role tonight defensively. So Vando 4 steals, 1 block, but then Luka had 3 steals. Marcus had 2 steals. LeBron had 2 steals. Ayton had a block. Rui had a block. Jackson Hayes had a block. So just that's almost the entire rotation contributing in some form of defensive playmaking. The only 2 players who didn't were Gabe Vincent and Drew Timme. But LA's defense, again, this is reminding me of, they had that stretch in mid-November. Remember the Milwaukee game, the Utah game. They also had the stretch to start this January against New Orleans and San Antonio and Milwaukee again. Like they've had some stretches throughout the course of the season of 2, 3, 4 solid games in a row defensively, which is notable because LA entered tonight 25th in defensive rating, which is far too low. We know that's the fatal flaw with this group right now. They remain 25th after tonight, but again, last 3 games they've been top 7 in defensive rating. And I still think they need to prove they could defend at this level. For longer stretches of games, right? Because the first 30 minutes of this game were much different than the final 18 minutes of this game. And it almost feels like the Lakers are like, they feel like a team of adrenaline junkies that they need the drama. They need the carrot of like, you guys are getting your ass kicked. You're down by 20. Can you make a comeback and can you make this a real game? And they did it against Denver. They were able to do it almost, you pull it off tonight, but they just have these like, they'll be asleep for 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, then they will flip a switch. And against worse teams, they typically win the game in the clutch. Tonight ended up being only their second clutch loss of the season. But to JJ's credit, he's talked about getting weird. He's talked about changing things schematically. We saw some Drew Timme at the 5, which I didn't love at first, but with the lineup that they were in, switching everything and just wreaking havoc defensively, it worked to a degree in that 4th quarter. They also closed the game small. Didn't love that, but it also worked to a degree. They were gang rebounding against Zubats, and he was able to get his hand on a couple of those, also tip out a couple of those. He had the reverse dunk late, but they held up fairly well, especially compared to how they've held up in small ball looks more recently, and has not gone as well. So I think the adjustment to get even more aggressive against James Harden, he had 7 turnovers tonight, and I would assume, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would assume most of those were live ball turnovers and direct steals that led to Lakers fast break opportunities. But LA's defensive playmaking, which we've talked about all season, that is the strength of this team. They are a high variance defense, but when they are at their peak, they are turning you over. They are wreaking havoc. They are able to, like, their best defenders are all arguably better off of the ball than on the ball in a way, because their ability to read passing lanes and get deflections and steals, like Marcus, Jake, and Vando can all do that at a very high level, as we've seen throughout the season. But tonight, the hustle, the gang rebounding, the getting out in transition, using those turnovers to jumpstart the offense that was sometimes in the mud. And really, like, if there was a concern for me coming off of tonight, it is something I'll be talking about in a little bit. But like right now, no one has been able to get in an offensive rhythm consistently outside of Luka and LeBron. Against the Nuggets, they had 3 players in double figures, and Marcus only got there with a couple of big threes and free throws in the 4th quarter. He was not having a good offensive game until the 4th quarter. And tonight they barely got there again with Rui and Marcus. So it's like, right now, the entire offense is what can Luka and LeBron either self-create or create for their teammates. And the Lakers have to figure that out, because I think they're in a bit of an offensive rut right now. And the offense, JJ said tonight he didn't think there was enough passing, not enough ball movement. He thinks when they're at their worst offensively, that is the primary thing, that the ball sticks too much and there's too much ISO ball. And it's just this is not a high pass team. This is never going to be a team you confuse with the Warriors or the Spurs back in the day, or just some of these beautiful basketball in terms of just ball moving side to side or driving kick, whatever. Like that's not really who this Lakers team is, but they do, when they are at their best offensively, there is an element of sharing the ball. And they do have 5 to 7 guys who on any given night can be in double figures. It just depends on how the offense is flowing. But also those guys have to make shots and make plays. And there is I think when we talk about some of the offensive stuff, it can sometimes devolve into, well, Luka needs to do this more or LeBron needs to do this more. And certainly there are elements of that, but you also have to look at the finishers and got like there was plenty of missed layups tonight, plenty of open three. Like, I mean, the open threes has been a thing all season, but the Lakers role players also just need to play better offensively, and they can find a better balance in terms of involving them. But when they have those opportunities, especially the high percentage ones, they have to convert on those as well. But the defense is heading in the right direction. We'll see how that holds up over the course of the road trip. I think fortunately for them, they're not playing a lot of high-powered offenses outside of maybe Cleveland and New York when those teams are at full strength or close to it. But I think that the Lakers are showing some defensive progress. They continue to be like a seesaw in terms of the offense looks good, the defense looks bad, the defense looks good, the offense looks bad. They got to find a way to try to put it together over a sustained stretch. But I have been encouraged by the defense the last few games, and I think that is something that we'll see what ultimately comes of that. In terms of notable performers, we have to start with Luka Doncic, 32 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 1 turnover, so another game with low turnovers for Luka. 11 of 27 shooting, 3 for 13 on threes, 7 of 10 on free throws. Luka, I mean, that leaning 3 into Chris Dunn that he hit, you saw Chris Pratt sitting courtside and his reaction to it. Luka hit some incredible shots tonight. I thought... so he ends up going 8 for 14 inside the arc, 3 for 13 outside the arc. I thought all the shots he took inside the arc were great, and he missed some of those, and some of those were really good looks. It just happens some nights. But again, I mean, 8 for 14 is obviously efficient inside the arc. Outside the arc, I thought he settled a little bit, especially early, where we've talked about it before. Sometimes with him, it's like, if he hits 1 or 2 early, I'm more okay with him increasing the volume. I think when he's only making 3, 13 is probably a little bit too many. A couple of those were late attempts and either late shot clock or during the comeback. So maybe that real number is closer to like 10 or 11. But I mean, 7 of 10 free throws. So he did get to the free throw line. He was obviously active in the post, getting downhill. And I just think he's been in a really good offensive rhythm lately in terms of, again, like not turning the ball over. I think most of the shots he's taking outside of a few threes are in line with how you want Luka playing. And looking at last game into this game, I mean, again, almost a triple double. That's 70 points over his past couple games, 24 rebounds, 18 assists. And the assists, as I just talked about, could have been higher had guys. I mean, you have him throwing a lob to Deandre Ayton. Deandre Ayton is not rolling into the lob. The ball just goes out of. I mean, that was the one turnover. Was he threw the ball to Ayton and it goes out of bounds. And it's just like some of the timing and rhythm stuff right now isn't quite there. But I also thought Luka held up really well in isolation against James Harden. But he also had several situations where he was switched onto different guys and I thought held his own. Like early on, especially in the zone, they're able to mismatch attack, and Zubac scored on him and a couple guys were able to score on him. John Collins hit a couple tough shots on him, but I thought he held up fairly well defensively tonight. Then we go to LeBron, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, turnovers. Once again, for the second straight game, was a big part of the second half comeback. LeBron, 1 for 4 on 3, so he was 8 for 15 inside the arc. He also, like similar to the Denver game, had a bit of a slower start to the game. I think he started 4 for 13, if I'm not mistaken, but then that shows you he went 5 for 6 the rest of the way. And he was a huge part, like especially in that fourth quarter. LeBron just has such a great command and understanding of the moment of, he just early in the game, he has the one play where like the Lakers offense is breaking down and he just wide cuts into like down the slot, gets gets fouled and goes to the free throw line. But then late in the game again with the cutting, the getting downhill, and also setting guys up, like he's been instrumental in these last couple of comebacks. And in general, I think when the Lakers are playing better in these second halves, maybe they have a disappointing first half or it's been a close game and then they start to distance themselves. LeBron is often at the center of that. So tonight, I mean, the 3-point shooting, the turnovers could have been better, but I thought he competed well and again was a big part of the third into fourth quarter run. Like that 38-14 run, he was a big, and he also continues to play. I think when the Lakers are playing their best defense, LeBron is often a part of that. So I think, echoing that tonight. Jake, 7 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 blocks, 2 for 5 shooting. He hit the 2 threes early. Like first 2 or 3 possessions of the game end up with Luka feeding Jake. Jake hits a couple of corner threes, doesn't score the rest of the way. But again, I thought the defense in terms of off-ball defense, of the blocks, the steals, boxing out, being a presence in the paint in terms of the gang rebounding and shifting over. I thought that stuff was good. I'm not sure why he only played 22 minutes tonight. I thought he should have played a bit more. Lakers did lean into Luka played 39, LeBron played 36. Maybe that's a part of it. I mean, Gabe played 16. I would have liked to have seen Gabe play 8 minutes or 10 minutes, and those extra 6 to 8 minutes go to Jake. I don't really see the argument for playing Gabe over Jake, but I was a little surprised he only played. Like, again, I know he had the rough stretch against Kawhi in the third quarter, but you could also just not put him on Kawhi, right? If you want to put Marcus or Vando on Kawhi, then you could just shift Jake off ball. So I reject the premise of like, because he got scored on a few possessions by Kawhi, that he shouldn't play as much in the fourth quarter. DA, we're going to touch on him with one of my takeaways. Another game where he does not play the final 19 minutes of the game. I don't know how much of it had to do with the eye and him just, I don't know. Like he had the goggles to start the game. He came back in without the goggles, and he started the third with the goggles again. But I mentioned the blown lob with Luka. He had another lob with Luka where he actually caught it and missed it, got the offensive rebound, missed it again, then tried to get the offensive rebound again, nearly had an over the back foul. So he goes 2 for 5. Just, I mean, he hit a couple hook shots, had a couple offensive rebounds, did have a block on Harden. That was nice. But I think there was a slew of mistakes tonight from him in terms of not being up to touch in drop and letting guys step into open jumpers beyond the arc or inside the arc. Just getting manhandled at times by Ivica Zubac. I mean, he manhandled DA and Jackson tonight. He had 19 rebounds and 10 offensive rebounds. I mean, there was times he was moving 3 dudes out the way. He's a monster, and just a continual reminder of how the Lakers screwed up that trade. But DA, I mean, you have that play. You have other plays where he's getting beat down the floor, and it's just, again, we've talked about the disappearing in some of these big games and some of these big moments. It's become a trend that is undeniable now and is really concerning because the Lakers are going to have many more of these games, right? They got more matchups with Denver, more matchups with Houston, more matchups with OKC, more matchups. I think they have one more game with the Clippers. I think one more with the Suns. Like, they've got some big games the rest of the season. I mean, on this road trip, Cleveland and New York, like, you just don't know what you're getting from him in those games. And that is becoming a concerning trend. Marcus, several big shots in the fourth quarter. Defensively was awesome. And, he was the primary guy on Harden, and I thought he funneled him into the right spots on the floor and into the doubles, and whether LA was icing on the sidelines. As always, like a bit of a wild offensive start for Marcus, and I'm not loving him. Like, there's a fine line always with him with the aggression and the calling his own number, and sometimes, especially recently, I feel like he's I've at least liked that he's like turned down threes, but then he'll call his own number into a drive and he's like driving into two people and sort of flinging it up. And he has gotten better at, I feel like he's watched enough Luka and Austin film to know how to draw fouls, and he's increased the grifting a little bit there, but it still is like a little bit less Marcus offensively, just a little bit less. That would be nice, but he did hit some. I think he had 2 or 3 shots in the fourth, so he was a big part of that comeback as well. Off the bench, Rui 12 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 2 for 7 on threes, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block. I think this was by far Rui's best game since returning. He had the 3 to end the third quarter, hit the jumper early in the second. He was out there closing the game. And also defensively, he Jordan Miller, really like Jordan Miller off of the Clippers bench. He got by Vando a couple times and scored on Vando a couple times. And then all of a sudden, like Rui forces him into a 24-second violation. He's switching on to him. So I didn't think Rui had a good defensive first half, but I thought as the team made their run and ramped it up in the second half, Rui was out there moving his feet, using his length. And I thought this was an awesome Rui performance. This was the most Rui has looked like himself since returning. The one thing with him continues to be like the 3-point shot is not there. He has shot 33% or worse in every game since returning. That will come with the shot quality that he's getting right now. I think he will bounce back and get back to being that 40 to 42, 43% 3-point shooter, but hit a couple tonight. And Lakers have definitely involved him a lot more, 24 shot attempts over the past 2 games. So Rui is starting to get his win back and get back to being also a couple games in a row playing 28 minutes. Like he's starting to look more like Rui. And I also think, especially looking at the last couple games, like I think the bench role can feature him more offensively, which has been not my primary argument for why he should come off the bench, but it had been part of the argument. And I think we're starting to see that more with the pockets of the game that he's playing. I think he's now looking more like the second or third option rather than starting the game as the 5th option and just not really getting into the flow of things. Vando, I mentioned it, one of his best defensive performances. I think the best defensive performance of the season. I think one of his best defensive performances going on the last couple of years, guarding Kawhi, guarding Harden, switching across multiple positions, battling in the paint. Only had 1 rebound, but was a part of the gang rebounding and just the chaos that if he's not the guy trapping and he's in that free safety role of he's able to read where the offensive player is trying to pass the ball, Vando is just remarkable in that role. Had 4 steals. I'm sure had a few more deflections. Like this was just an awesome Vando game. And he made a 3, which he has not been making threes consistently lately. He's back to being in a slump. Did miss a couple layups, which but still, it's like he's just been last couple games. I really liked his defense, and tonight. In terms of like him, I think even being at a different level than his normal defense. And tonight was, to me, just a masterful Vando performance. Jackson, 6 points, 2 rebounds, didn't end up closing the game. LA went small. I thought I liked his minutes. This is just a bad matchup because Ivica Zubac is just too strong for Jackson. Too strong and too physical. Like Jackson has put on weight. We have seen some progress in that regard. This is not a good matchup for him. We saw that going back to last year. Zoo just eats his lunch every time. Gabe hit a 3, missed the wide open transition layup that Jackson followed up on. I don't know. I don't know. Then Drew Timme, had an interesting game. So the Lakers changed. I don't know why they changed the rotation that had been working the last couple of games in terms of that big lineup and going to the zone early in the second quarter. They started Rui in Timmy's place to start the second. And then they went zone a little bit. I don't think it worked great. I don't know if it would have worked better necessarily with Timme out there, but I just thought it was an interesting rotation adjustment when they had gone to that I mean, remember in the Denver game, Timmy scored 7 points right out of the gate to open the second quarter, helped LA trim down that deficit. They go away from that, then they bring in Timmy and Jake LaRavia, which just changes the dynamic of the lineup. I don't know why they made that adjustment. To me, it didn't really make sense. And I didn't like Timmy was just kind of out there for his first shift. I thought the second shift, which ended up being in the fourth quarter, was much better. That's where they played him at the 5. And because they benched DA and they were giving Jackson a break, they end up, he plays, I think like 5 or 6 minutes in the fourth, and they just start switching everything. He's part of the rotations. He's part of the doubles. He's also getting back to gang rebound. Like they weren't as concerned with the offensive rebounding when Brook Lopez was out there. But I thought Timmy was better than the numbers indicate because he had 0 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. The Lakers were +4 in his 10 minutes, but I still think that they're trying to figure out the role. He did have 3 fouls. I don't get why JJ tweaked it when it was something that had been working, and then he wasn't as effective in a different context. Like I thought it was a couple. Like they took out the one context Timmy had been the best in, which was in the double big lineup and the double big zone, or really like the quadruple big zone with LeBron and Vando out there. I don't get it, but we'll see if that was a temporary thing or if for whatever reason JJ keeps that as a permanent change. In terms of stat of the night, already talked about it. 22 stocks was a season high for LA. 14 steals, 2 blocks. Incredible stuff defensively. And then I'm gonna zoom through the 3 takeaways and then get into the Q&A. Takeaway number 1 is someone please do something. And this is coming off the last couple of games, but I think we know the Lakers supporting cast is inconsistent, right? Like I don't think, especially offensively, defensively, I think Marcus and Jake and Vando and even Jackson to a degree are pretty consistent. You know what you're getting from those guys defensively pretty much every single night. Of course, there are nights they are better. There are nights they are worse. And certainly some matchups and players who are too athletic, too quick, too shifty, too good at ball handlers, too good at shooters, whatever, where they could be compromised defensively. But for the most part, you know what you're getting from those guys on that end. Offensively, we just don't know what the Lakers are getting from their supporting cast on any given night. Marcus can hit 8 threes like he did against the Spurs. He could go 0 for 6 from 3 and have 4 turnovers. Rui has been marginalized, really going back to like mid-November, has not had the same offensive role. And then more recently, since returning from injury, has not shot the ball as he normally does. Jake, feast or famine. Jake can drop 15, 18, 20. Jake can go 0 for 2 and just take 2 shots and not really contribute anything. Vando, anything he contributes offensively is gravy. He is improved recently as a finisher, but has regressed as a shooter. Then tonight shot the ball well, but missed a couple layups. So it's just, and that's before we even get into the big men where like Jackson's entirely dependent on Luka or a ball handler creating for him or putback opportunities. And then DA has been very up and down over the past month and a half. And he has not been as impactful as he was like the first month and a half of the season. So you just don't know what you're getting from this group. I didn't even mention Gabe, but we know that. Dalton, Nick Smith has had some big games, but also has had some games where he struggled and been a defensive liability. Kobe Buffkin's not getting an opportunity right now for whatever reason. I don't understand that either. So you just go down the list and it's like, you don't know what you're getting offensively from the supporting cast. You know what you're getting from the stars, right? Luka's giving you 30 plus every single night and 8 to 10 assists every single night. LeBron pretty consistently lately has been 24 to 26 points, some nights even more, 7, 8 assists. You know what you're getting from him. And then Austin for most of the season has been 25 plus, 6, 7 assists. And then when he's running the show, even more than that. You know what you're getting from those guys. Everyone else, it's just, I don't know. And I don't really know how to solve this because it has been really the case all season in terms of some nights it's like 7 guys in double figures. Some nights it's 3. And there's not much consistency with that. If anything, I think the consistency is more on the downside of this, of like it being closer to 3 or 4 guys in double figures. And the Lakers got to figure that out, because I just think right now, especially as the defense has gotten better, the offense has regressed, and it continues to be that seesaw I talked about a little bit earlier. But if they can get into a better offensive groove outside of the stars, and again, it's not just on the stars. I know people are going to point the fingers at the stars. It's not on them, because they are creating opportunities that are not being capitalized on. They are creating driving kicks or kicks out of the post. They are creating fast break opportunities. They are creating just openings by the attention that they draw that are not being converted at the rim and are not being converted at the 3-point line. So I honestly put this more on the supporting cast and the role players than I do on the stars or JJ. I think in order for me, it would be like role players 1, JJ and the coaching staff and the scheme and being more organized 2, then the stars 3, because I just think the stars have carried them offensively to such a level that it's like, sure, could they take care of the ball better? Could they maybe involve guys more in certain stretches? Of course, I'm not denying that. I think if you're concluding it's on the stars and this is their fault, I just don't agree with that assessment. But the Lakers need more from the supporting cast offensively, and they need more consistently. And I think until they find that, there's just going to be this Jekyll and Hyde nature to their offense. Because right now, talking about 7th in defense over the past 3 games, well, they're 14th in offense. And the offense continues to disappoint overall, especially starting like December 1st or so. Takeaway number 2, Deandre Ayton benched again. And this continues to be a thing in big games, which I would classify this as a big game. It's rivalry week, second game of the road trip. They're playing the Clippers, who are the hottest team in the NBA right now. A game that like doesn't really matter in the standings right now in terms of like the direct battle between the Lakers and Clippers, but the Clippers are surging. And again, it's a pretty big gap still between the 2 teams, but every game matters for the Lakers in the context of, again, they lose tonight, they drop to 6th. Had Minnesota won, the Lakers would have dropped to 7th. So it's like every game in the West matters. And just some of these recent performances where he is missing point blank shots, he's getting beat down the floor by his direct counterpart, giving up offensive rebounds, getting scored on, not being up to touch enough. Sometimes the turnovers or the decision making out of the short roll, the lob connection with Luka. It's just not really at the level that certainly it was earlier in the season, but not at the level that the Lakers have needed. And I think it's caused a bit of a hole, because for as good as Jackson can be, and I think there's been a lot of games recently he's just straight up outplayed DA, and obviously the coaching staff has felt the same way by having Jackson close over him so much recently. It's just that there's a limit. Like we know what the ceiling is with Jackson Hayes. DA is supposed to be the guy who can attack in so many different ways, as a lob threat, as a short roll finisher, as a guy who can flash into the middle of the lane and score, and as a guy who can attack mismatches, get offensive rebounds and putbacks, and just has not done that consistently lately. And I understand to a degree I want the ball more, I need to be more involved, but the Lakers have also done that over recent stretches. And like, yes, he had the game against Toronto, that was amazing, but I think we need to see it more consistently, and we need to see it in some of these bigger games where like Toronto didn't have a starting center, and the one guy that they did start that was actually kind of holding his own ends up getting injured and doesn't play the rest of the game. Clippers had Ivica Zubac, who's, last year was a top 3 center in the NBA, top 4 center in the NBA. This year has not been the same player, but easily top 10, if not top 6 or 7. Didn't mean to do that. He just completely kicked Ayton's ass tonight. So this is a concerning trend that I think the Lakers, like as they calculate some of these decisions at the trade deadline, really have to factor in how they feel about Ayton the rest of the season, how they feel about him as a potential future piece, and just if they feel like they need to upgrade or revamp that position. And if it's better to do it now or potentially in the summer. And then third and final takeaway is Austin Reaves injury update. We got some good news from JJ pregame. Austin has been practicing. Austin has been playing 3-on-3, And according to JJ, looking like Austin, looking like himself. So that's a good sign. The next step is for him to play in stay ready games. But if he does that soon, I mean, it looks like there's a possibility that he could be back as soon as second half, later portion of next week, potentially, depending on the check marks that he hits and how he progresses physically. So he is expected back at some point on this trip. The Lakers, I believe, play Friday. I think it's Friday in DC, then Sunday, New York, Tuesday, New York. So maybe one of those 3 games could be a potential return date for Austin. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. Before we do, I have a quick shout out to Fanatics Live for sponsoring tonight's show. I'm going to play an ad and then I will be right back. Like many of you, I grew up collecting basketball cards and Pokemon cards. And so when I had the opportunity to partner with Fanatics Live and rip some cards live for you guys, I cannot think of a more fun and nostalgic activity. Fanatics Live is an awesome way to get in on the fun of ripping sports cards. It's an app where fans buy and rip cards together 24/7 with live on-screen hosts guiding the action. Let's go.
All right, Jovan. Show it to me, come on.
Okay. Okay. Take another player from Dallas. There you go. First NBA rip, and I land a Cooper Flag card. New users can get a free instant rips pack with a graded card to try it out. Use the link in the description to download the app and join your first stream to get your pack. Thank you to Fanatics Live for sponsoring this video. All right, let's get into the Q&A here. First one, Gorilla the Conqueror. Thank you for the super chat. Luka was bad at the end. LBJ looked frustrated with him. So I assume you're talking about the possession where Luka turned down the shot, ends up kicking it back out, and then misses the. I forgot if how far the shot was, the late shot that, or he ended up taking. Was that the one he took the step back 3 instead of trying to. Because Vano got the steal, then Luka had a scoring opportunity, ends up kicking the ball back out, getting it back, taking the step back 3. I wouldn't read too much into that. I mean, I think that's probably a possession he would want to do over, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought Luka was a part of. I mean, he hit some, hit that huge shot during the run. It was around the 6-minute mark, and then had a couple of assists in the 4th. So I get it, but I wouldn't read too much into that. Again, that final, I think to be completely honest, I okay, let's just say he pulls up for 3 at that point and hits it. I guess LA's down 3 now, but there's still 28 seconds left. Now you're in the free throw game, and maybe you have a real shot to win the game. I don't know if that's specifically what you're referencing here, but I don't want to act like that's the reason why the Lakers lost this game or what. But I see what you're saying, and LeBron does have an expressive face, so sometimes he will wear his emotions on his sleeve, but I don't want to read too much into that. Samir, thank you for the super chat. The season is a wrap. It's very clear the roster is not constructed properly. We have players that are borderline NBA players, heavy minutes. What is the outlook for real change this summer? I don't want to go here in terms of the season is a wrap. I'm not there. I still think the Lakers have things to prove in terms of I would like to see them. I'd like to see them get healthy and at full strength, and just what that group could be at full strength. We've had 8 games of Luka, LeBron, and Austin. They are 5-3 in those games. Just not much of a sample size. Going back to last year, the numbers were better last year. This year, they're getting out. I think they have a minus 9.8 net rating with those 3. I do not think that's sustainable. I do not think that's going to last. I think that now maybe they're still closer to 0 or a slight negative with those 3, and that is a bit of a limitation there. I think one of the things is changing the starting group permanently when Austin comes back, and if they could do that, I think they'll start to win the big 3 minutes more consistently, and that net rating will improve. Their overall net rating should improve with Austin back, and their point differential should improve. So I think getting Austin back and them getting into the positive ledger, positive side of point differential, net rating, I think those are all things that signify like those would be steps in the right direction. Now, ultimately, I agree to an extent in terms of I think the Lakers need to make a move or a couple moves to really maximize this roster. To my earlier point, I just think there's too much inconsistency from the supporting cast. Honestly, more so offensively, at least recently, but you could argue on both sides of the ball. In totality, they have too many guys that are way more tilted in one direction in terms of the side of the ball that they're better on. And it forces JJ into these really tough decisions where it's almost like a chemistry experiment, which lineups are in general. But like with the Lakers, there are very strong confines in terms of the types of lineups that you can build. They don't have this like insane versatility with their rotation because, again, you put too many of the Banshees out there, you don't have enough shooting, you don't have enough ball handling, you don't have enough passing, you don't have enough shot creation. You put the original starting group, which is the group that tends more offensively. Well, they can't defend, they can't switch well, they don't play with pace, and they actually turn the ball over more than they should based on the personnel that's out there. So you got to be careful in both directions. That's why I've talked about this framework. They have stuck to it to a degree, but they do shift away from it of, two stars max or 1 star plus 1 offensive minded player, a big, and then a couple of Banshees. That's kind of gone out the window lately. And part of it's been the personnel that's available. But I think they just have some real confines in terms of how they can build lineups. And when you lose a couple of the guys that can really flip that and make it difficult for JJ, where if you put certain lineups together, they're just going to get killed, as we've seen. Like the Lakers floor, even tonight through the first 2.5 quarters, they're down 26 points. Their floor is very low. Like their floor is play in or even lower than that in terms of like when they're playing their worst basketball. So again, I agree to the degree that I think they need to make a move or two, which is what I've been saying going back to the offseason in terms of what this roster needed. But if you want to look ahead toward the summer, there's so many factors that play in here. What is Austin's final number? And is he taking a little bit of a haircut, or is it that $42 million max? What happens with LeBron? Does he retire or leave, or does he return? Is he returning on a big number? Is he returning on a discount? What happens with DA, who has a player option? What happens with Marcus, who has a player option? What happens with Rui? Do you trade Rui now? Do you keep Rui? Do you extend Rui? Do you re-sign Rui? Like there's different ways that could play out. And then what do you do with the picks? Because right now they have access to 1 pick. On draft day 2026, they have access, which is before free agency. They have access to 3 picks, 2026, 2031, 2033. Do you flip some combination of that on draft day? That could also change how you approach free agency. Then there's the matter of, are they actually pursuing free agents, or are they trying to use the cap space and cap flexibility that they have to trade for people? Both of those paths, I think, are a little bit more complicated than people want to let on. I've talked about the cap space fallacy of, now the Lakers are an exception because they are the Lakers and they play in Los Angeles and they are a dream destination. And we saw a couple buyout guys shake loose in Deandre Ayton and Marcus Smart. They go to the Lakers. Wouldn't be surprised if at some point here in the next month or so, someone gets bought out and they potentially get attached to the Lakers, depending on the Lakers roster situation. Like the Lakers are the Lakers. They will always be in the mix for players just because of the allure of playing for the franchise, playing in LA, playing for the fan base, and also now playing with Luka, LeBron, Austin, etc. So I think there is a path for them to nail free agency, but it is harder. I feel like this is not the mid 2010s or the late 2010s where free agency was a little bit more rampant in terms of you create a certain amount of cap space, you can sign a big name free agent or a couple free agents. That has not been as frequent lately. And guys are tending to re-sign and then try to force a trade or eventually ask out in their situations, or even the teams are willing to re-sign the player and then worry about it later when, and the Lakers could end up in a version of that if they re-sign Austin. Like, let's say they lose in the first or second round, they still have some questions about the Luka Austin pairing. The most prudent thing to do is still to re-sign Austin and then potentially flip him next season or at some point in the future. So I think the free agency situation isn't as like people want to, they have 50 million in cap space, but like 50 million in cap space might get you less than you think, especially when you also look at who's actually available. Then if we're talking about potentially trading players, well, okay, like let's just say they want to go, they want to try to trade for Trey Murphy or something, or even Herb Jones. Like, New Orleans is not just going to trade Trey Murphy or Herb Jones into the Lakers cap space for like a pick or something, even 2 picks. I think for Herb, maybe they consider that. For Trey, that's still not enough, but like they're going to want things back. And because the Lakers have so much expiring money right now in the form of Rui and Gabe and Maxey, potentially DA if he opts out, potentially Marcus if he opts out, they're not going to have many tradable contracts. So you have to find the sweet spot of like a player who's good, who you can acquire into that cap space that you're willing to give up a pick or 2 maybe for, but also that the team wants to get off of. And so that's like a very delicate Venn diagram there in terms of, okay, well, this is a player who like this team is deeming they do not want to keep, that this player is not worth it and is worth a pick or 2, but like is also good enough to make a real impact. Because again, like you can think about, all right, Lakers have 2 picks. Well, you have to offer probably something more than just 2 picks for a lot of these guys that the Lakers are trying to get. And is that Austin? Well, if it's Austin, it could only be in the context of a sign and trade. He's a free agent, so he can go sign wherever. He doesn't have to just, it's not like Austin is going to be forced into going to a different situation. He would have to agree to that. So like the Lakers don't have a lot to trade necessarily this summer, which is why I think it's so important if they, especially with, I think Rui's an interesting pivot point here, because I really think like one of 2 things make sense to me, unless again, they have some insight into their free agency options that we just don't have right now. It either makes sense to keep Rui and extend or re-sign him, or to flip him right now. Because the middle point of just letting him potentially walk and keeping him through the rest of the season, that to me doesn't really make as much sense. Because again, yes, you have this cap space in theory, but you don't necessarily know what that's going to actually lead to. And there are different scenarios in which you have 20 million in cap space or 30 million in cap space. And like, I don't have the time right now to talk through each one. I do plan at some point later, maybe post deadline, kind of talking about where the Lakers are at and doing a breakdown of their cap situation and some of the paths forward. But there's a lot up in the air in terms of what is going to happen with LA going into the summer. But I think it should be first and foremost, they should flip Gabe and Maxey, try to get that money into a more productive player who can help you now. And then, Rui, I think it just depends on how they want to move forward with him and if they view him as a part of the future. And then I guess this summer, again, there's so many factors up in the air with Austin, LeBron, Rui, DA, Marcus, their picks. It's just tough to say what is going to happen. But I think the ideal scenario would either be signing somebody, like I think Peyton Watson would be a great target for them, or trading for somebody. But I think it's a little bit tougher and more complicated than some people are leading on right now. Like I don't think it's just as clear as like, 50 million in cap space, you're going to go free agent shopping and get whoever you want. It's not really how it works anymore. Truckstar, excuse me. Thank you for the super chat. Marcus is a dog. Ayton isn't it. Gabe plus Maxey gone. Agree with the first statement. I'm not entirely out on Ayton, but I think there have been some real red flags, and I think he's I think he needs to have some self-reflection here of I did not like how the previous benching situation was handled in terms of he sort of flipped it into being a victim of the situation. And JJ first defended him, and that set the narrative of DA's not playing as hard because he feels like he's not getting the ball. And JJ sort of took that bullet for him. I don't think that should or can be the case moving forward, because at some point he has to acknowledge he signed up for this. It was very obvious that he at best was going to be a distant fourth option on this team, and that some nights he was even going to be the fifth or sixth option. And some nights he is going to get 5 shots. He is going to get 7 shots. This was never a situation where he was going to consistently be getting 15 touches or 15 shot attempts. And he signed up to be the dirty work guy, to be the guy that they didn't have last year, to be the guy screening all game and rolling all game and being a lob threat and protecting the rim and boxing out and running end to end fast and out, you leveraging that athleticism against his opposing counterpart. That has not happened consistently. That has not happened consistently in big games. And that is something that I think he needs to look at himself in the mirror here over the next couple of weeks as they approach the trade deadline and be like, why am I getting benched when I'm clearly the most talented and productive big man on the team? Why am I consistently getting benched here? At some point, that's not on JJ. That's not on Luka. That's not on LeBron. That's not on Austin. He's got to look at himself in the mirror, I think. And then Gabe and Maxey, I think, should be gone. We'll see if LA is able to pull that off. Peter, thank you for the super chat. Win against Denver was fool's gold as Nuggets missing 3 starters. LAC best record since 12-15. LAL with tougher remaining schedule. Do you think LAC finishes ahead of LAL? Well, the Denver game, I got into it a little bit with people on Twitter, and I didn't even mean to. It's just I didn't think saying I called it a statement win, and then it was more so Nuggets fans going at me like, well, we didn't have 3 starters, we didn't have Jokic, and I'm like, yes, I'm aware of that. I stated that multiple times on the show. You're obviously not listening to the show, which I don't expect them to, but I wasn't saying yes, I'm aware that the Nuggets did not have 3 of their 5 starters, which is why I wasn't saying it was like the Lakers' best win of the season, or even I think the Toronto win is probably more impressive just based on who is available for them. And it's debatable because Denver had been playing really well, but I thought the nature of the win with the comeback, being on the road, kicking off the road trip, kicking off the second half of the season, the way Luka played, the way they were able to defend, the defensive game plan, all those things were really impressive and notable with that. So I stated during last show, I think Denver's the second best team in the NBA behind OKC. I think there's a pretty big gap between them and whoever you want to put third. I would pick them head to head over the Lakers if they were matched up in a 7-game series. So I don't know what other praise I have to give Denver or acknowledgement I have to give Denver, but yes, Denver's really good. And even without Jokic, they've been really good, which I actually think is a more positive sign, because typically when Jokic has missed games or Jokic has been on the bench, they've been terrible going back a half decade now. They've actually built a roster and a system that they can sustain without Jokic, which go back to even last year's playoffs when he was sitting in the OKC series, they were getting killed. They were terrible when he was off the floor. They needed him to play 48 minutes. It just wasn't possible. So that's my Denver rant with that. In terms of Lakers versus Clippers, look, right now they are 6.5 games back of the Lakers. That's a lot of games. They are specifically 7 games back in the loss column, 6 games back in the win column. I do not see the Clippers catching the Lakers. I do think the Clippers are going to get back over 500, and I think they're going to pass Portland. I think they could potentially pass Golden State. I don't think they're going to get into the top 7, but I think them getting to number 8 is possible either through the play-in tournament or just straight up finishing at number 8. Ryan Lucas, thank you for the super chat. Let's call a spade a spade. this Bron LA relationship over. If there wasn't a no trade clause, he would have been gone already. I was at the game. Worst live, not a team. I thought it was interesting that the Amazon broadcast, including Dwayne Wade, who obviously knows LeBron as well as just about anybody in the NBA, was commenting on how joyless the Lakers looked and how disconnected or just not really like a team LA was looking. And that was what's funny is right after they said that, the Lakers went on a 38-14 run and looked pretty happy and pretty joyful after that. I'm yesterday I was moving, as many of you guys know, and I was sort of thankful I was off the clock with this whole ESPN story between the Lakers and LeBron and Jeannie and LeBron and Clutch, specifically those of you who've been following me and have been listening to the show for a while. Like, I have alluded to this several times. I have talked about the relationship not being the best necessarily. I know that has upset Laker fans before, me saying that. That has upset LeBron fans before, me saying that. It's just been what I have heard and observed through my now 6 years of covering the Lakers. It just is what it is. I've talked about this before. The Westbrook situation was an irreparable fracture that both sides started pointing fingers. Both sides wanted to wash their hands of the situation. Because of that, I do think the Westbrook trade, it's objectively, it is not like a top 5 worst trade of all time, because there are certainly trades that you see. I mean, the Lakers might have just benefited from a bottom 5 trade of all time with the Luka trade, but the Westbrook trade was certainly destructive on a multitude of fronts in terms of the LeBron Clutch dynamic with LA, the trust on both sides, the finger pointing on both sides of who's in control, who should be in control, the best way to handle the situation. There's just been a lot there through the years. And then that's to say nothing of LA traded away its two-way talent and has never went from having a plethora of two-way talent to they've been looking for two-way talent for 5 years. So, there's so much with this that I could talk about it for 45 minutes. I was not surprised by the story. I would say I knew about 80% of that. I didn't have some of the drama specifically within the Buss family and within the siblings. I did not have that full picture, that full context. And obviously it was very enlightening, but in terms of the LeBron Clutch and Lakers dynamic, I think it's gotten much better since the Westbrook trade, and it continues to fluctuate in terms of, just like any dynamic, it can go up and it can go down. I think, again, it's much better place than 2021 or 2022 when there was the exploration of potentially trading him, or even 2024. Maybe there was some resentment with the Bronny pick, but yeah, I mean, it does feel like the relationship is heading toward the end, whether it's LeBron retiring, LeBron potentially leaving, or LeBron maybe playing like one more year as a Laker. It is going to be over in the next 18 months. Now, how it ends, again, whether it's LeBron retiring, LeBron leaving, or LeBron playing another year, maybe, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if LeBron knows the answer to that. I don't think the Lakers know the answer to that. We'll see how that plays out, but it does feel like it's trending that way. Again, at some point in the next 16 to 18 months. Connor Phillips, with the positivity here, the optimism. Thank you for the super chat. At least we heard the Thunder's draft position. LOL. I mean, that's the real thing. In that, I guess, is now you don't want it to come at the Lakers' expense, but in terms of the Clippers playing better, that has been a positive. People around the NBA are much happier about that. The Clippers giving the Thunder a crappier draft pick. Alma, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Jovan, congrats on the move. DA is not it. When you compare the production around the league, it's glaring. Embiid, Bam, Şengün, even Nurkic back-to-back triple-doubles. SMH, Luka and Braun regularly out-rebounding DA is embarrassing. I've touched on DA a lot. I know, you guys are like, I see there's a couple more DA questions. I mean, look, like you guys know, I was pretty critical of him coming off of the Houston game and the Detroit game. I felt like I was one of among the primary Lakers content / podcasting / reporting, analyzing whatever voices that was like pretty harsh on him. Like I feel like people were still sort of holding out, and I was like, no, let's look at the actual games here. And outside of the San Antonio game on November 5th, he's been pretty disappointing in a lot of these big games. Like I would also say the Milwaukee game in Milwaukee, he defended Giannis well. And then I think the first Phoenix game in Phoenix of the two, he was solid, but we could go through like I don't want to rehash it all, but I've been critical of it. I'm not fully out, but I am trending that way. I think the Lakers should be exploring if there is an option for a center upgrade, or at least a different look at center. You have to consider it, because I think it's tough because I talked about this the other day in terms of, I have my midseason grades. I haven't had the time or the Wi-Fi to do it yet, but I might do it at some point. I am going out of town the next 3 days, and that's something I'll announce at the end of the show. But like I would give his first quarter grade of the season probably an A-. I think he did maybe even an A. Like just looking at the first 20 games of the season, pretty close to an A or A-. This last 20 games has been C-, maybe. C-. Like it's not been good, and that's trending in the wrong direction. And it's sort of like feels like they had the honeymoon period with him where he was bought in, he was doing all the little things, he was committed to it, and then eventually some of the concerns and some of the habits or tendencies that other stops have had issues with and other stops have criticized, those things have started to pop up, and that has been, and like I'm not even going to get into like, because my experience with him, and by all accounts, like he's a great dude, and everybody in that locker room loves him. So it's not even about that, because I know that's been something that's also been carried with him of people say he wears out his welcome. I'm not even talking about that, because I don't think that's the case. I'm more so talking about like the actual consistency and motor and focus and urgency and all that stuff. That has just not been consistent lately, and that is something that needs to change, frankly. RG and Cal 4872. Notice how DA leaves the game and they came back. That is a good point. And it's also the second time, because he left the game, a little late in the second quarter. And actually the game momentarily collapsed in Denver, because remember Denver, I think, closed the quarter on like a 14-3 run, an 8-0 run specifically to close the second. But he's not out there in the second half. And I mentioned that when I talked about Jackson. I was like, in the notable performers section, I was like, if DA doesn't get injured, I don't know if the Lakers win this game, or I don't know if they win it as convincingly. And then second straight night where they go on a run after he's out, or just he's not part of the run. And I have noticed it. And that is one of the things the Lakers are going to have to figure out here. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat again. I continue to believe Claxton should be number one target. I'm working on my top 10 targets, and right now I have him probably number 2 or number 3. I still think if you can get that ideal starter at the wing spot who can play mid to high 30s, start and close games, be a more consistent presence, that is something I would value slightly more, but it really depends on what the Claxton package ends up being. Like if there's any way to get him without giving up the first round pick, I would probably vault him to number 1, just from, because I think the wings, you're going to have to give up a first. I don't see them getting that 5th starter, high 30s guy in terms of minutes, who's not going to cost the first. I would be stunned if they're able to pull that off. So if there's any way to get Claxton without a first, that would be then like such a value that I think you have to do that. I don't really see that happening. I think it probably would cost the first, but Lakers and Nets have had a good relationship through the years, and that's certainly a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I think to me, I've made the comparison before. He's got a lot of similarities to Jackson, and we've seen, I think it's undeniable at this point, like Jackson and Luka have a better chemistry, have a better connection, have a better partnership than Luka and DA, or at least a more stable and consistent one. And like you could argue Luka and DA is a higher ceiling just because DA is a more skilled and talented and gifted offensive player, but it just looks way different with having Jackson. I mean, beautiful lob pass tonight from Luka to Jackson during the run. And Claxton can do, I mean, he's not as big as Jackson, and I don't think gets quite as high, but he is a really good lob threat. But then I think he's even better defensively than Jackson, better rebounder than Jackson. So yeah, I mean, you could really make that case. Tan Man, thank you for the super chat. Nurkic had 17, 11, and 14. Lakers need to trade Rui for him. My biggest thing with Nurkic is, and the Lakers have, I think, really exploited this the last like 2 or 3 years. He's just a defensive liability. He can't play in the pick and roll. Really, all you can do, like in drop, I think he's too slow to wall off a drive or to recover to contest. Then I mean, you could try hedging, but then he's gonna, I think, have a tough time getting back into the action. And then I guess you could blitz or try to double or trap, but then again, he's got to rotate back in. So he is someone who clearly can be productive, and I know he's had a couple triple doubles recently. The passing is a real thing with him in terms of he's sneakily one of the better passing bigs in the league. He can score in the post and attack mismatches and score in the pick and roll. Obviously still a good rebounder, but I think the thing that these numbers are not reflecting is the defensive end, where I think he's frankly like one of the worst defensive bigs in the league in terms of just very limited with his footwork. And I think just really tough to keep him out of being targeted in pick and rolls. So that's where my primary concern would be. And I know, and look, this is coming from me, who I get accused of being a Rui hater or not, seeing Rui's potential or seeing what Rui does. Even I would rather have Rui than Nurkic. Now, if there's a way to flip Gabe or what's Nurkic's contract? I think that's the other thing here that I don't know it off the top of my head. His last contract was 4 years, $70 million. That is absolutely insane. Though he was a good player in his prime. It's just wild that he's still on that contract. So 19.4, he's expiring. If you could flip Gabe, or he's interesting if you could flip Gabe and Maxey for him and something else from Utah. To me, like I've talked about, having that more of like the behemoth, brawny type of big. I think he's someone that would add a different element to the front court. I would assume if they're keeping Ayton, or at least like if they have kept Ayton past the deadline, he will probably remain the starter, because I think if you move Ayton to the bench, you're probably losing him. I mean, already like the touches are one thing. If you reduce his playing time and move, like I think you could clearly not close with him, which JJ is comfortable with, but I think you probably got to keep him as like the nominal starter at that point. But Nurkic, depending on the matchup, can go out there and bang with a Zubats or whoever, a Şengün and Adams, whatever, and hold his own to a degree, and certainly hold his own more than Ayton or Hayes. So I almost like him as a bit of a curveball at the 5. I would really not want him to be the starting 5. I think he's way too limited defensively. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. This Clippers team could be a top 6 seed if Kawhi's healthy. Amazing turnaround. Certainly, I think it's going to be tough for them to get that high, but when we're talking, like, I will say if every team in the West is at their peak, I would take them ahead of the Phoenix Suns. I think their ceiling is higher than the Suns. I think when you get into I would still take OKC over them. I would still take Denver over them. I would still take San Antonio over them. The Houston Lakers Wolves range is close. I still think I would lean all three of those teams ahead of them. But even if we just say they're potentially like the seventh best team in the West at full strength, that is impressive because the seventh best team in the West is probably the equivalent of like a 52 win team on, like I'm saying, looking at the caliber of the West this season, I think those top 7 or 8, I mean, they're all easily 50 win teams. I don't know if all 8 of those teams will get there, but being like 7th this year in the West, I think like in an average year, you're probably a 52, 53 win team and you're a home court team or a top 3 seed. This year, it's just the top 8, top 9 are so good that that's not going to necessarily be the case. But like, even if we say they're 7th, hypothetically, I mean, you could argue 6th if you want to put them over Houston, if you want to put them over the Lakers, if you want to put them over Timberwolves. I wouldn't necessarily agree, but I could understand that argument. They're now 2-1 against the Lakers, but I would probably have them 7th overall. But certainly a crazy turnaround, and I mean, this is closer to what we thought going into the season. I was a little bit lower on them than consensus. I was not as low, obviously, as the 6-21 start. I had them as a play-in team, which is where they probably will end up. But yeah, I mean, they're looking incredible right now. Leak, thank you for the super chat. Other teams keep finding NBA caliber talent, yet we're stuck with the same issues and excuses for why the roster can't improve since post 2021 season. You are preaching to the choir. I echo everything you are saying here. I look at a guy like Spencer Jones. Spencer Jones could be a Laker, should be a Laker. Like, he is the exact type of guy the Lakers could use in terms of talking about a 6'7" wing who could defend multiple positions and is a 40% 3-point shooter. The Lakers could use that player. Spencer Jones, if he was on the Lakers, he would be my pick to be the 5th starter. And like, he is, when Denver's at full strength, probably 8th in the rotation, 9th in the rotation. Like, that shows you the gap there in terms of two-way or just like wing talent that they have compared to the Lakers. And that's just one example. We could go to OKC. We could go to Houston. We could go to Minnesota. We can go to the Clippers. I mean, Jordan Miller, look at what Jordan Miller was doing tonight. Like, Jordan Miller would I don't know if he would start on the Lakers, but Jordan Miller would have a big role if he was a Laker. Like, his ability to attack with an advantage, get downhill, get to the rim. Again, he scored on Vando a couple times. He was attacking against Ayton and Hayes and drawing fouls. Like, I mean, that's another guy that, like, the Lakers just have. This has been a blind spot for the front office for basically outside of like the first couple years nailing these types of guys. They have not consistently, and not even like forget consistently. They just have not hit on these guys. Period. Max Christie's an exception. Jordan Goodwin, I guess, although the thing with Goodwin is he's 6'3", 6'4", so you want someone more in that like 6'6" to 6'8" range. Otherwise, it's like they just have not hit on that player archetype, and it's glaring. Basketball, thank you for the super chat. Davion, elite at point of attack, switchy despite size on timeline. I like Davion Mitchell if there's a way to potentially get him. I'm not sure what Miami's trying to do, and he could be a valuable piece into a bigger trade. Or, I mean, frankly, I think he's a guy that, like, if let's just say the Heat trade for Giannis, they trade for Ja, they trade for, not all, but like individually, they trade for a star, whether it's a Giannis, a Ja, whoever. You want a Davion Mitchell in the backcourt next to Ja. You want a Davion Mitchell next to Giannis and being that point of attack guy. If there was a way to get him, like if you could, I mean, he's making 11.6. He's making 12.4 next year. If you could flip Gabe plus something, I don't know. I think if you offered Gabe in a first, that would get Miami's attention. I don't know that I'd really want to invest the first in Davion for as great as he is as a point of attack guy. I also think he's underrated offensively. I mean, in many ways, he's similar to like what Marcus Smart used to be, a bit smaller and you know, different types of defenders to a degree, but you're certainly a better point of attack guy. But to your point, can also switch. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to get him. Like, I would do Gabe and Dalton in a second for him in a second. I don't think that's like realistic. I think this is where if LA could somehow find a way to get more seconds, I would offer 2 or 3 seconds for him plus Gabe and see if Miami bites on that. I think a first is a little bit too rich for my blood, but you could also maybe talk me into that. Double Lou, thank you for the super chat. Is it time to blow it up and rebuild around the young core? When will Jeans kick in? Would love for 22-year-old Bronny. Okay, there was a follow-up to that. Would love for 22-year-old Bronny to score 25 straight in conference finals. Well, a couple things here. I don't think you can rebuild when you have Luka Doncic about to enter his prime. I think those two things are antithetical. So you can retool, you can reshape things. Rebuild, I don't think is I don't think it's possible to rebuild with Luka on a roster, because even if you gave Luka the worst roster in the league, there's going to be a baseline level of just competency because he's carrying a certain load. Then you add in Austin to it, and I just think if you give Austin and Luka the worst 3 through 15 in the league, I still think they're going to be at a certain level as a group. Now, are they maybe still a lottery team? Potentially. Are they a back-end playing team? Potentially. It depends on it depends on how bad they are. Maybe they're bad, but there's at least like some athleticism and defense there. If you give them just old, slow guys, okay, there's a limitation to it. But you're not rebuilding around Luka and Austin. And even then, those guys are not like that young, right? Like Austin is 27, Luka's about to be 27. So those guys are more so in their prime, like entering their prime years and ready to compete and contend for the next half decade, at least. And then with Bronny, still a work in progress, still a project. I do not think we're going to be seeing the 25 straight in the conference finals. Verbal Karate, thank you for the super chat. Don't like DA sulking, but I understand 70% field goal percentage and can't get the damn ball from the ball stopper. And injuries aside, this roster isn't built well. So the thing with the DA field goal percentage is I believe there's a direct correlation to the quality of shots, because so he's shooting incredibly well from that like short paint area range, which is a testament to him, because a lot of those are hook shots, a lot of those are floaters, a lot of those are post moves. So he deserves, I think, the majority of the credit for that. Like looking at it now, from this is entering tonight, from 3 to 10 feet, he's shooting 64%, which his previous high was 59% going back to 2022. Last year, he shot 47% from there. He's shooting 17% increase compared to last year from 3 to 10 feet. That is astronomical. That is a huge percentage increase. Then he's at 57% from 16 feet to the 3-point line. So those are the long twos. Previous career high was shot 55% a couple years ago, but during Phoenix, it was at 47%. So he's been having an incredible shooting season from the mid-range and like the short roll area. But I think one of the big things for him is he's shooting 84% at the rim. And the reason he's shooting 84% at the rim is because of the shot quality he's getting playing next to Luka and Austin and LeBron. And so I get like, I feel like there's a notion for some that like, okay, you see the 70% and you're like, well, just spam that. Just keep feeding the guy. I think with higher volume, the percentage would go down. And also this is partly reliant on him having opportunities created for him, which teams have schemed against and taken away those opportunities because they know DA can be a lob threat. He can finish at a high level around the rim. So I guess my point is like, I feel like sometimes people treat it as if he's shooting 70% because you're just feeding him the ball in the post. And the Lakers just decided one day, hey, like, let's go away from this. No, 70 to 80% of his offense is coming out of the pick and roll and Luka, Austin, LeBron creating for him with pocket passes, with lobs, or maybe there's a switch and then he gets a deep seal post up against a smaller player. But if I'm an opponent, I'm going to do everything I can to take that away. And that's where we've seen teams sink down and leave that kick out pass to the corner and just kind of live with that guy taking that three. And that's why that shot has become, or part of the reason why that shot's become so valuable. So my point is like, part of it's the opponent taking away those opportunities to DA, but also I think a lot of this is related to him feeding off of those guys, benefiting off. Like, it's different playing off of Luka than it is off of Scoot Henderson. That there's a huge gap there. So my only slight pushback here is I feel like sometimes when people talk about the DA situation, they're acting like they have prime Shaq in the post asking for the ball and he's not getting it. No, that's not the situation. It's primarily he's closer to DeAndre Jordan, like peak Lob City DeAndre Jordan, or like Tyson Chandler right now, than he is to Shaq in terms of his usage and the way that he's thriving offensively. It's not a lot of let's give this dude the ball and like let him cook. And I feel like that there's a little bit of that notion out there that I'm pushing back against. But I also agree on the last point. I think the roster is lacking in two-way talent and certainly needs to be upgraded. Gary Singh, Rui had one great defensive moment, needs to play with more passion, could have boxed out Zubats better, and needs to make those wide open threes late in the fourth. It was back-to-back. I believe it was back-to-back, or it was two relatively close together but he was part of some of the runs. I'm not saying Rui was great defensively. I said I thought he was bad defensively in the first half, and he does have the lapses. He does have the times he switched on, Kawhi scored on him a couple times. Harden blew by him a couple times. So I'm not, I feel like some of the Rui discourse has been pretty negative. So I was trying to give him his shine for what I thought was his best game easily since returning, but he was far from perfect. He's missed a lot of big threes over the lot. I thought the Denver game, it didn't end up costing them, but he got some good looks he missed. Tonight, he got a couple big looks in the fourth quarter that he missed. So yes, he's not shooting the ball well from three. And in general, he is low motor, with either boxing out or rotating or just containing the ball, he struggles. So yeah, I hear you. I'm not defending him in terms of disagreeing with you here. I just thought, especially in the fourth, he had some nice defensive moments, and anytime you can force a shot clock or stonewall a guy your shot clock violation, I think that's notable. Zach Wan, thank you for the super chat. DA, another KP where theoretically fits perfect with Luka, but somehow doesn't work. I love Nick, but he is an upgraded version of Jackson. Which realistic center we should look? Well, I feel like you're saying upgraded version of Jackson is as if that's a bad thing, where I think that's a good thing. But if we look at the NBA free agent centers in 2026, just out of curiosity here, so the potential centers that are free agents this summer, you have Hartenstein. OKC has a team option on him, so they got to decide. We've talked about it on Lakers Collective. They potentially have to decide between Hartenstein and Dort. I think Dort's probably easier for them to replace than Hartenstein. I think Hartenstein is one of the more underrated players in the league. He's an elite rim protector. He's a good rebounder. He's a great passer for a big man, also a great screener. And I just think he's a really important piece for OKC that for as great as Dort can be defensively, he's still somewhat of an offensive liability. The shot comes and goes. And I think with the defense, I think across J-Dub and Caruso and Wallace and AJ Mitchell, and they have a lot of perimeter firepower. They have a lot of guys who could step up and take on more of a role. They don't really have a Hartenstein replacement. It's not the other Jalen Williams. Chet is a different type of big. So really, if the Lakers could get Hartenstein, that would be amazing. I just don't know how possible that really is. Then you got Vooch, Nurkic, Zach Collins, Mitchell Robinson. I like Mitchell Robinson as a potential possibility there. Robert Williams III, I like him as a backup. I don't like him as a starter. Mo Wagner, who just returned from his season-ending injury last year. Brook Lopez has a team option. DA has a player option. Kevon Looney, Day'Ron Sharp. Sharp has a player option, 6.3. He's outplaying that. I don't see why they would turn that down. Horford, Drummond, Nick Richards, Jalen Duren's a restricted free agent. I think that'll be resolved, and he will stay in Detroit. He's getting a big raise this summer. Mark Williams is also a restricted free agent. Then you get to you run it back with Mark Williams, like Kevin Love, Dwight Powell. Beyond, now we're in the territory. Now Walker Kessler is a restricted free agent. I think that number is going to be high. I think the Lakers could make a competitive offer, but I think Utah probably matches any reasonable offer for Kessler. Then Jock Landale is someone I like as a backup potentially, or at least like one center option and maybe like a 3-headed center monster rotation. That's kind of it. So, among these guys, the only names that really move the needle for me are Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson. Those are the only two guys I look at here that are semi-realistic somewhat feasible, that are starter level. Everyone else, Vooch, I would want as a backup. Nurkic, I would want as a backup. Robert Williams, backup. And I'm not even saying I want those guys. I'm saying like if the Lakers were to entertain them, they are not starting level centers anymore. Robert Williams more as a backup, and then now we're in this, Nick Richards. I don't know. Like that's just not. Phoenix tried to make that happen. It didn't happen. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. So it's just kind of grim. And then you look at like the trade market, and I don't know who that center is that would make a lot of sense for LA. So I think Nick Claxton is probably a top 2 or 3 option in terms of whether the trade market or free agency. I don't see a lot of, like, if all the guys I just mentioned are available, I would probably go Kessler 1, Hartenstein 2, Claxton 3. And there are a couple of options I would probably rather have than him, but it's a short list. Zach Wan follows up and says, LA trades Herb, or LA gets Herb. I'm guessing this is Ben Mathurin, or no? Okay, Ben M, Nick Claxton, Jay Wilson. Pelicans get Rui. Oh yeah, it is Ben Mathurin. Pacers get DA. Brooklyn gets DK, Gabe, Maxey, Jose Alvarado. Thoughts? And should Lakers trade first-round pick for more first-round pick? Last one, I'll just say quickly on that. Not all first-round picks are created equal, so it depends on. I would say, if you think about it in the analogy of like a dollar, right? The theory here is you trade a first-round pick worth $1 for for a first round pick worth 50 cents and another first round pick worth 50 cents, or maybe one worth 60, one worth 40. Collectively, it adds up to $1. I do not like that strategy. I think if the Lakers are trading a first round pick for 2 or 3 future firsts, I think collectively it should probably add up to like $1.20, where actually the totality of the 3 firsts is worth more than the individual first, but maybe. Like OKC is a great example. I don't see OKC doing a trade with the Lakers and trying to help them out. But like OKC is an example where they have so many picks that like it would make more sense to consolidate some of them. And that would be an instance in which they give up 3 picks for the Lakers pick. But I think ideally for LA, you're trading those picks to get picks that are like collectively more valuable, because if you're sort of getting 2 crappy first round picks that are about the same value as your individual first round pick, at that point, you're not really gaining the advantage. The advantage is like each individual first is not straight up worth as much as your first, but collectively they should be worth more than your first. Otherwise, I think it's a bad deal for LA. So I'm really particular here of, it's hard to say in a vacuum. Yes, I think there are certain teams or certain trade first packages that I would consider this, but as a blanket sort of approach, not all firsts are created equal. And there are situations where, like, I mean, just for example, let's say OKC offered them, LA's trading them the 2031 first, and OKC's like, we'll give you our 2026 and our 2027 first. Like, I would say no to that, because OKC is almost certainly going to be a top 3 to 5 team over the next, I mean, they're already the best team in the league right now, but like probably be a top 3 to 5 team next season as well. And so you are now locking in pick 25 to 30 in 2 consecutive drafts, whereas you have this mystery box of 2031 where you don't know where you're going to be. Like, I think that would be a bad trade for LA. Now, if you could get a couple of Brooklyn's picks or a couple of Utah's picks, that's a different situation. And that, especially like shorter term, that I think gives you more to play with. So it's really dependent on the context of the picks. In terms of this second one, I'll already say this. I do not think Indiana would trade Ben Mathurin for DA. I think that would be selling low on Mathurin. I think they could get more for Mathurin than DA. From the Lakers side, I don't know. Is there a pick going out here? Because I don't think the Lakers are getting Herb Jones and Ben Mathurin without giving up at least a pick. I mean, for Herb, I think you have to give up a pick, or like that's the way that would go. I just like right here, you're just saying the Pelicans get Rui. I don't even think they would do Rui and a pick for Herb Jones, but just Rui for Herb Jones. The Pelicans are not doing that either. And then they're also giving up Jose Alvarado. And then Brooklyn, DK, Gabe, Maxey, Jose Alvarado. They're giving up. So as I'm talking through this, I hadn't like quite put all the pieces together, but we're talking about LA getting Herb Jones, Ben Mathurin, and Nick Claxton, who each of their individual teams are asking for at least a first round pick for them. In the New Orleans case, they want 2 first round picks for Herb. So I don't think the Lakers, like, sure, if you're the Lakers, you do this in a heartbeat, but I don't see an outgoing pick here. And I mean, maybe if they do the second part of your question in terms of flipping one first for multiple firsts, and you can get a first to each of these teams and satisfy them that way, maybe this is possible. But like Brooklyn's not giving up Claxton without a first. Herb's not going out without at least a first. I think Mathurin, you're going to have to give a first or like close to first value, and it's not DA. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. From what you're hearing, what happens to Bronny post LBJ? I have not really heard anything on that. If anything, I've heard it more in the context of like, it's not about even like post LeBron. It's more so just like where he's at right now in his career. And he's clearly not a rotation caliber player and someone who needs more reps at the G League level. So I think it's more so uncertainty about like what he can be and the trajectory he's currently on, because I think right now, I mean, we're at the 1.5 year mark, and there's certainly been progress. Like, he's undeniably better right now than he was when he first stepped foot in summer league as a Laker. Like, going almost 2 years ago, Bronny then versus Bronny now, night and day difference in terms of everything. Like the shooting, the passing, the defense, all of it is better now than it was back then. But to like what degree, and ultimately what's his path? And this is where I've talked about, I think his path should be more being that Davion Mitchell point of attack bulldog type guard. We've seen some flashes of that. We have not seen it consistently. And it seems like they've tried to groom him to be more of an offensive caretaker / scorer, which I just don't think he's quite good enough yet at the NBA level to do on a full-time basis. So I haven't heard anything definitive or really even any murmurs. I think the bigger question is like, which way is his career going to go regardless of the LeBron situation, because right now I think, it is trending more toward him being I think he looks more like a two-way guy right now in terms of being in between the NBA and the G League, rather than being a guy who's on like the cusp of breaking into a rotation. So I think he's still got a ways to go in terms of the development. Arnold, JJ waited too long. The common factor, both runs, Ayton didn't play. I see why D-Book hates him. Come on, JJ, the first 5 to 6 minutes in 3 cost. I think, are you referring to Ayton getting benched? You're saying it was a little bit, took too long. I can see that, or I mean, you're not going to bench him for the entire second half. I just, that's not how these things go. But I thought benching him for the final 19 minutes made sense. But I think are you referencing the first 5 to 6 minutes of, or you're saying 5 to 6 minutes in the third cost them. I mean, he was not good in the third quarter, and he did not have a good game. So I hear what you're saying, though. And yeah, I mean, it's something that they're going to have to navigate here. Next one from Gary Singh. Thank you for the super chat. Everyone that's mad at Braun for opting in this year, who are the Lakers even going to use that money on in free agency? If he didn't, Braun better than the other options. It's a good point. I mean, trying to think of who even was signed last year. I mean, I think to this point, I think there's more. The argument I think you could entertain more would be him taking a discount to give them more optionality in terms of like, could you have had LeBron at 30 million, and with that extra, like maybe you flip some of the expiring guys and create some more. But even with their cap situation, like there really was no path with him staying for them to create a lot of flexibility. So that's a bit of a pipe dream. And then if he had left, that would have been different. But then even then, I don't think they would have had more than, I want to say somewhere in like the $20 to $30 million cap space. So it's like, would you rather have LeBron or like a $20 million or to $30 million player that almost certainly is worse than LeBron, right? Like there are guys in that mix that are, I don't even know off the top of my head who is in that mix that I would say is better than him. But yeah, I mean, the alternatives were not as great as I think people have talked about. Harry Shinani, predict what LeBron will do this offseason: retire, return to LA, or go to another team. I feel like there's been like some signs of him potentially retiring with like the whole patch on the jersey and the Jay-Z quote and like just some of the things he's said and some of the things that have happened. I feel like I don't think I'm going to pick retire, but I think what I've said, I stand by what I said a few weeks ago. And I don't remember exactly when I said this, but I said, like, if we're splitting these 3 possibilities up into a possibility pie, I still think there's a 55 to 60% chance he is not back in LA, which is some combination of retiring or going to another team. But like, if I'm splitting them individually, I still think the biggest slice is him returning to LA, but the other 2 slices collectively are bigger. So maybe I'll say, maybe drop it a little bit, but like, let's say like 35% chance he is back as a Laker. I guess 65% chance he either retires or goes to another team. And then between those 2, maybe goes to, I guess actually then that would potentially goes to a different team higher. Maybe that's the what I'm leaning towards. I don't know. I think staying in LA or going to another team is pretty close to like 35, 40, and then the retiring is the other percentage of it. So as I talk through it, I just don't know where he goes. And if he wanted to go somewhere, he could have forced his way there this summer and demanded a trade or pushed for something. He didn't do that. He has not done that. So I think it also depends on what LA offers him. Like if LA draws a line in the sand and says, hey, we'll only pay you $20 million. And Team X that he's potentially interested in going to offers him $30 million, that's obviously a factor that he has to consider. So if I had to predict, really putting me on the spot here, I would, I don't know. It's really tough. I really don't have a great read on the whole situation. I think it could go, I could believe any of the three. Part of me leans like maybe another team, but I think it's close. So maybe another team. Arnold, thank you for the super chat. DA was a common factor the last two games, and when Lakers made a run, JJ should have switched beginning of third. Those 6-7 minutes cost the game. He's a bust. D-Book was right. The effort, don't wait. Appreciate the super chat. And I mean, I think we're coming to an interesting spot with this where like JJ is going to be asked about this at some point soon. And like, sort of the not closing with him and the benchings and stuff. I'm interested to see how he talks about that. Pinty says, why not Kobe Buffkin over Gabe? And then he also says LBJ should accept $45 million and we have Jordan Goodwin. So that's an example of maybe something that, you know, shedding some money to keep Jordan Goodwin is a fair situation or you know, a fair hypothetical here. That is one that is, you know, but it's also tough to get a, because I mean, remember it wasn't, there's different versions of this I've heard, and there's different things that have been reported, but sort of the thing that was out there was there was no discussion about a potential contract. So there's a scenario in which he rejects that player option and he potentially doesn't even get a contract offer from LA. Like we don't know that for sure. So the fact that there was no discussion about that highlight, like that also does speak to him potentially just being gone at the end of the season, whether it's retiring or leaving. And then final one here, I am going to have to, or the Kobe Buffkin over Gabe. I mean, that's been a thing for a couple games in terms of Gabe playing over him. I don't get it. But I do, I will be wrapping, let's see, Legoat James asks any update on Herb. No update. I still think it's a big game of chicken, but we shall see. Chaco Thunder asks who's my GOAT. My GOAT is LeBron. That's the funny thing. I feel like I've gotten it. I know right now there's some tension between the Luka side and the LeBron side. The LeBron side says I never criticize Luka. The Luka side says I never criticize LeBron. I can't please anybody, but yeah, LeBron is my GOAT. But I'm not one of those people that's like tethered to that take where if you want to make a case for Jordan, you can certainly make a case for Jordan. I acknowledge that like Jordan is probably the consensus pick or you know, the slight consensus pick. Julian asks, what's my prediction for the record at the end of the season? I think I predicted 52-30 entering the season, and I feel pretty good about that because they're on pretty much that path right now. So I'll say 52-30. I'll stick with that. Cool. I'm going to wrap here though. I went a little bit longer than expected, but that is what we do. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me. Hope you guys like the new set as we build it out. Very excited about that. I have more wall space. Also potentially going to change the camera angle a little bit, zoom it out a bit, show more of the room, but going to play around with it. Quick update before I wrap. I am going out of town tomorrow through Sunday night on a trip for my wife's birthday because her birthday is on Christmas, not really able to celebrate it, have a party. So there's a group of us going out of town, but because of that, unfortunately, I will not be going live after the Dallas game. We'll also not be going live the next morning. Like if I miss a night, I missed, I think 2 nights this season, I've gone live the next day. Unfortunately, I will not be in a position to go live. I will be in the woods, so not the best Wi-Fi and not bringing my laptop or anything. So hopefully the Lakers don't make a trade. If they do, I might have to do a quick live or something on my phone, and we'll see if I can sneak away and get away with that. But yeah, we'll not be going live after the Dallas game, but we'll be back Sunday. Well, I'll be home Sunday night. Monday morning, we'll do Lakers Collective. Maybe I'll probably do a live during the day just to sort of make up for the Dallas game. But appreciate you guys for understanding. And I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow with Lakers Collective at 11 a.m. and then back again on Monday with Lakers Collective and then another episode of Buha's Block. But appreciate you guys. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, leave a 5-star review. Talk to you all tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening.